Here's another big one, folks, that you see in the a mental health issue that you see in the clinic is pride and shame, and really they're the same coin. They're really pride is actually an unwillingness to feel ashamed, right? Pride is a lack of humility. You don't want to be ashamed. So, shame and pride are actually really nuanced. A lot of people feel like they'll say like, "Oh, I'm such a humble person. Last week, I didn't want to go out with my friends because I just feel like I am, ugly and I'm overweight and I don't want to, I don't want people to see me this way. And so I didn't go out and spend time with my friends. I just stayed home. And I'm just like a humble person like that. I don't think very highly of myself." And so, but is that humility? No, absolutely not. That is actually like the height of pride, right? That the person is unwilling to feel ashamed, and they're so prideful that they can't handle any possible loss of honor in the situation, right? And so shame and pride are really nuanced, and so we always have to take a really hard look at anything in our at our life that could be resembling that. So who are the prideful individuals? These are the individuals that actually never even make an appointment and come to your clinic despite having a desperate need. It's too hard for them to look at their diet and admit that they're eating something that isn't helpful for them. It's too hard for them to feel ashamed about their inadequacies. So they go into denial, they become rebellious, they get angry when other people give them advice. And who are we talking about here? All of us, right? All of us on some level. Our blind spots are the most difficult things to face in our life. This is why some people, when they choose a spiritual practice, they're like, "Oh, I want to choose a spiritual practice that resonates with me." But the fact is that, well, how is that spiritual practice going to help you get over your blind spots, right? Sometimes it's the the spiritual practice that doesn't resonate with you at all that is the most helpful for getting over your blind spots. So that's a interesting paradox there. Also, one thing to mention is that generally the people's biggest fear is their worthlessness. So if you have a client that says they're struggling with fear, what they're oftentimes struggling with is pride and shame. It's just because this is just from my personal clinical experience, is that a lot of clients, what they're really afraid of is feelings of worthlessness on some level. So, and here's an example of that. I had a client that felt she was totally worthless, totally unlovable. And lots of childhood traumas around that. She was ashamed of herself, ashamed of her looks, and she was coping this by really just giving up hope entirely. She was like, "Oh, I guess I'm not one of those people who will ever have love. I might as well just work at my job and just accept my fate, accept my life, and, not really try for anything great." And to her, that probably felt like humility, but it's actually not. It's total pride, right? She was in this relationship with a person that she didn't really love and that didn't really love her, and just kind of going through the motions. And she's also drinking alcohol as her one escape from the drudgery of her life. As I was talking with this client, she revealed that, that she just didn't want to feel vulnerable. She was just very protective of herself. And really she was mimicking her mother's defense mechanisms. Her mother was very protective of herself. And so she always felt like, a powerful person is a defensive person or even an offensive person. And I've got to never be vulnerable. And so I helped this client see her vulnerable as something precious and natural. That's something that as Americans we don't want to that we don't want to do. That's not natural to me as an American. I don't want to feel vulnerable, and so so it's I want to suppress my vulnerability, And to this client, I suggested that she wear her humility as a badge. That she was a person who felt vulnerable all the time. And so, well, that could be a gift, right? That could be a gift from the creator above. And so, instead of trying to become more domineering, how about becoming more vulnerable? And so I suggested some mindfulness around her feelings in this area, some contemplation, and to journal that, and that she look behind some of these behaviors to the insecurities that were driving them, and also counsel her to forgive her mother. Her mother was probably doing the best she could, and she may have traumatized her, may have hurt her, but it's time for forgiveness and to move on so that she can be an adult and be strong in her life. The strongest people I know are the ones that are most humble. If you are willing to accept your vulnerability, you're going to be a much more confident person. And confidence feels like having more pride about yourself, but actually confidence comes from that humility. And so complex issues here. You're not necessarily going to be getting involved in this as an Ayurveda practitioner in your practice. You want to refer out to mental health disorders, but these issues are coming up in the clinic.